Yep.
So anybody who's just joined, this is the second part of an interview that a conversation I've been having with Ionah de Freitas. She's a dear friend of mine and an acupuncturist here in Denver who uses 5-element acupuncture and Aromapoint Therapy. She is, I'm not going to go through her whole bio, but you can watch the other video of ours because it says more about her and what she does. But what I wanted to do today was, it came to both of us that we're both affiliated or associated with recovery. And I'll have Ionah talk about what recovery is to her and specifically. And for me, I'm a recovery and life transition coach. So I have experience not only for substance abuse recovery, but also from many sort of big life transitions and shakeups that I've found have the same underlying aspects in returning to balance as substance abuse does, aside from a bit of the biochemical aspect to that. So that's what's drawn me to do what I do, is I help people get back up, shake off the dust, get clarity and move forward with accountability and compassion. So that's what I do. And I also bring in a lot of healers and referrals and people that I think, specialists that I think can really help my clients out in finding balance and having more support and consistency and really just support and love in the healing process. So people such as Ionah, acupuncture, a healer, all of these things can help get our bodies back in alignment. And I definitely, and the stuff works. Bringing in healing modalities when you are healing helps. It speeds up the process. It makes it everything you're doing more efficient and effective. And so I like to introduce people such as Ionah and other people that I've had on here to clients and people in general, so that they have more resources and they know the other things that are out there. Some things are just too mysterious or they seem too new agey, and really they're rooted in, you know, deep ancient science and sometimes newer science like positive psychology and neuroscience, you know, and stuff like that. So Ionah and I are going to talk about recovery and what it is to us, and her specifically, she's going to talk about, I don't know, I think oils and different sort of practices to kind of manage and reset and take care of oneself as they're going through this process. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can do it as, you can ask me a question and I can answer it, sort of thing, if you want, or.
Well, when we talked about it, what did you kind of envision? What do you think what do you think from your experience would be really helpful for people to glean from our conversation right now? Would it be some help in the oils department? Would it be just kind of maybe free flow, tap in here and see what you want to talk about?
Sure. Well, definitely oils have helped me in my own journey through recovery. And not drinking, basically.
Okay, why don't you give us a little backstory about what recovery is in your world, and you know,
Sure.
drinking, is it other things?
No, it's drinking. Well, it's drinking and any other behavior, like you were explaining, that can sort of, you know, it's different thing, but similar. It feels similarly in the body, mind, spirit. But drinking was my thing that I misused for a very long time. Started when I was very young. Hello, Pickles.
Look who it is, Pickles. It's Mama Ionah, Auntie Ionah. I'm just giving him a
Pickles.
little love. I've been teaching all morning and he has not gotten much.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He's also a good tool in the recovery kit.
He really is. Little puppy
Right?
love, for sure.
Yes.
My clients love having him around in our sessions, and my students.
Of course they do. He's the best. So anyways, yes, I started drinking very early on when I was 14, 15, and was in the food and beverage industry, restaurant world for years, where that is just an accepted part of that industry, drinking heavily along with other substances, but drinking was the thing that I did best and most. So
I was very good at it too.
So
and I was also in that world.
Not to make light of it at all, but I definitely misused it, as many people do. And just before I turned 50, when I was 49, I decided, for many reasons, that enough was enough, and had a long long enough affair with it and decided to cut it off. So that's when I began my, I suppose, my healing journey with, when I stopped drinking. And I didn't use oils in the very beginning because I wasn't using them in the way that I use them now. I sort of white knuckled it uh, in a way. I was just sort of doing my own discovery of what worked for me and what didn't work for me. And in that time, I discovered um, Holly Whitaker and her hip sobriety school, which was very, very helpful for me in my recovery. And I did hip sobriety school, and I maintain a connection to Tempest Sobriety School, which is what hip sobriety turned into. Um, and Annie Grace was also really helpful. The book that she wrote, This Naked Mind, really. But those were two of the first two people that really like sort of gave me hope that I could actually do this thing, which was stop drinking. And I was never drawn to AA, and I have nothing against AA, but it just never spoke to me. And so I didn't ever tap into that place in recovery. And I respect so much that many, many people do and have and continue to, but that wasn't for me. So I just started reading tons of books on how to quit and why to quit, and people's memoirs about their experience with drinking, and like spent years, like 2 years probably doing that. Hi, Demita. And in that time, I was practicing, and that was one of the main reasons I stopped drinking, was that I recognized quickly that I couldn't keep drinking and be a good practitioner. I just couldn't be with people. I couldn't be present with people. I couldn't be present and be truthful with people when I didn't feel well from having drunk a half bottle of wine the night before. And I just wasn't, I was foggy. I couldn't be with people. And in the beginning of my practice, I was using alcohol more because I wasn't yet equipped to I didn't know how to deal with people suffering. And drinking was a way at the end of the day to just sort of like numb out, which is how I always used it. But I was using it specifically because I had heard something that was so rattling to my core that somebody had shared with me, and I just didn't know where to put it. I didn't know what to do with it at that time in the beginning. And so when I recognized that was happening, which thankfully was early on in my practice, I started to shift away.
I didn't know that.
Bit. Yeah. I mean, I've only not been drinking for almost 4 years, so I was probably in practice a year before it really kicked in, where I was just like, I can't do this anymore, because it was getting worse, actually, because I was using it as a way to deal with the pain of what I was hearing every day. Sometimes, it's not always painful what I hear, but, people do reveal themselves to you fully, and a lot of that can be very painful. And so I was still learning how to create safe boundaries around for myself and my so when it clicked with me that I can't do this anymore, I can't use alcohol as the way to deal with that. It's very destructive for me, and it's very unhelpful to my clients. I just decided, this is it. I have to make this decision. And I'm not a gray area person. I'm generally black or white. So I didn't try to mess around with moderation, because I knew it wouldn't work for me. It just was more of a mental game than anything else, and I couldn't do it that way. So I just decided to quit.
Well, and I'll jump in and say that real quick. I am actually a gray area person. So although I choose not to drink, primarily, I drink very rarely. And for a lot of the same reasons, so many reasons, but one of them, a big one, is because it affects my teaching and it affects my coaching. And I want to be on and clear and refreshed and radiating and inspiring to people. And if I'm not, if I'm not, then I'm not as effective and powerful, and I don't feel great. So, but part of my just life in general, I've learned to be a gray area person, and I'm not recommending people explore gray area drinking by any means. I'm bringing up the point that I used to be very black and white, and a lot of my therapy there's something called dialectic behavioral therapy, which helps people, especially people dealing with bipolar. It's a very powerful sort of kind of like CBT or DBT. It's learning how to think in different ways, more in the gray area. And it was one of the most effective, helpful practices for me, moving from those extremes. So that's a separate thing. But I am saying, I just want to kind of give a contrast to those of people who are watching right now. This is a recovery centered conversation that Ionah is, absolutely, sober. She abstains. I pretty much abstain, but I don't, I don't count like the last day that I had a drink, and that's not me. I'm a gray area person. I just choose not to drink pretty much.
Yeah, and to make a distinguish too there, Nikki, I'm not, I don't identify as an alcoholic. I don't count my days of sobriety. I have a general remembrance of when I first quit. But what Holly Whitaker and also what Annie Grace taught me was that for me, it works to say that I just choose not to drink. I don't consider myself an alcoholic because I no longer drink and I no longer use or rather misuse alcohol. So I don't stigmatize myself with that definition. And for those who do with that, I mean, there's no judgment there. It's just that language didn't work for me. So it's very empowering for me to every day say, I'm not going to drink today because I choose not to. In the same way, I could wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to have a glass of wine and see what that feels like. And see what that feels like. But I don't do that because I just choose not to. So, but there's no stigma if I'm on myself if I were to do that. But it works for me not to. It's tempting fate for me a little bit because it was something that I did for so long and did, in an unconscious way for so long. So, anywho.
And it's anybody who's watching this or who we know who's in early recovery, anybody I work with, I absolutely recommend, like, don't make it something to strive for to one day drink again. No. What's more helpful, I think, if it's kind of a mind trick, is like, okay, give yourself permission to drink again when you no longer want another drink. When you no longer want to drink, then maybe you can have a drink. But at this point, it's like learning how to live happily without. So that's your mission. That's all.
Right.
Not that it's easy, but I'm just saying that that's the way to go.
Yes, exactly. It has no significance in my life anymore, but I couldn't say that 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It really, there's nothing about it that matters to me anymore. Where it did, because you and I met in the restaurant world where drinking again was a part of our work. We had to sell wine and we had to know wine, and so it's, I don't know. There's so many places where alcohol is just normalized. That certainly is one of them. And but after you don't do it for a while, for me, it's just lost its relevance. Like, it's really irrelevant to me. Like, I don't crave it. I don't.
It's such a wonderful place to be. I really wish I wish for so many people who struggle with it, for them to get to that point where it is just, it's a sense of peace within and no longer that sense of internal conflict and
exactly. Yeah, and the agitation that can cause. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But anyways, I guess moving into the oils, I never knew how to use them as a replacement for booze, but I certainly started doing that. No, I don't ingest them. That's a whole other story. No, I don't recommend ingesting essential oils generally. But when you're trying to change any habit, it's really good to have something to replace that habit with that's healthier for you.
I actually like to add it first.
Yeah.
I'm such a proponent of adding so that when you're taking away, it's not as shocking.
Right, and you don't feel deprived of that thing necessarily. Yeah. So even if I'm trying to coach somebody in my practice to move away from drinking coffee every day, you know, a lot of drinking coffee for people is ritual. Like they like to get up in the morning and, you
Yeah.
know, um,
Many drug users say, I mean, studies show that even like cocaine, people who do cocaine and hardcore drugs, a
mhm.
ton of it is the ritual that surrounds
Yes,
it.
yes,
So
yeah,
finding a different ritual or a different substance to use in that same ritual.
yeah, exactly. So with
It's not a
coffee as
lot
an
of stuff I
example,
recommend sniffing, but
oils are
oh, yes,
lavender.
I do. Yes, I do. What am I talking about? Just not powder, just,
Exactly,
vapor. Yeah.
right.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Okay, so yes, if you're replacing a habit, it's good to have that other thing ready and going already before you take away the thing that you love doing. So, coffee is an example. If you wake up every morning and grind your beans, and the aroma is part of it, your cup that you use is part of it, the method that you use to make your coffee is part of it. And you're trying to shift into, say, drinking more tea, then make
Mhm.
sure that you have really good quality tea, loose leaf tea, or beautiful looking tea that you're going to infuse in a beautiful pot and put in a beautiful cup, so that you're not feeling like you're missing out on something. So, um, when I started using oils to help with my desire for alcohol, a lot of it was the fact that the oils, it's a physical action where you have to like go get the oil or take it out of your pocket, open up the bottle and do your ritual with it, whether it's just smelling it, which is amazing, just to sort of jog your brain from the craving that it's having for the thing that you don't want to do. Or for you to take the time to put it into your diffuser or put it on a point, an acupuncture point, if that's the way that you're using it. All of that mental energy that it takes to do that is going to distract you from your craving of, you know, pouring yourself a glass of wine or a beer. And hopefully at this point, you don't have the glass of wine or beer in your home, which is another thing that I always talk to people about. If you're trying to quit smoking, don't have a pack of cigarettes on the counter,
Yeah.
If you're trying not to drink, then it's easy enough to get a drink in our world. Don't make it
Yeah.
even easier by having it in the house.
For sure.
So having the oils around can really like help transport you out of that craving, like really instantaneously. It's pretty amazing. And
Reach
some of
for
the
the bottle.
strong
You can reach for this bottle. So many metaphors we can use with this.
I know exactly. um
It's true though.
and again, the oils, they're very personal. Like ylang ylang is a good example. I didn't love ylang ylang when I first started using it. It was too strong for me. um but it actually is one of my favorite oils now, especially when I'm having a craving for something sweet, or an occasional craving. Sometimes it happens for a glass of wine at certain times of the year when the weather changes. I think about it and I just think, I need something strong and sweet and uplifting right now, and something that's going to feel really soothing and kind of um, warm and comforting. And I'll often reach for ylang ylang, or I'll reach for patchouli, something that has a really strong scent and that's like has a presence,
And complex.
really.
Yeah. Something's like, yeah, like you said, it's got a substance.
Yeah, and like
Does the
patchouli is a
trick.
great example. Not everybody loves patchouli because obvious reasons. I think obvious reasons, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
If you grew
Mm-hmm.
up in the 70s,
Yep.
it was much overused, much
Mm-hmm.
loved.
Much
But
loved.
patchouli is a great spicy oil, that just is like, it's like warming a fire, an internal fire, when you smell it or when you put it on your body, like especially in the lower abdominal area. There are all these
Mm.
points below the belly button, between the belly button and the pubic bone, that are just incredible for helping us feel at home in ourselves, basically. And when you
Mm.
use patchouli in that area, diluted patchouli, you really feel that. You really feel how it warms you to your core.
Wow. So
So
I can have patchouli mixed with like a little fractionated coconut
yeah,
oil
coconut.
and
Mhm.
put it on my lower belly.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm. The
Absolutely.
same with
Yeah,
like
you
a
can.
lang lang, long along.
Ylang ylang I wouldn't necessarily use on my lower belly. Ylang ylang I like to use on the heart meridian, on the wrist and arm. I also will sometimes use it in shenmen,
which we talked about in the other interview,
sticky.
you guys, so you guys can watch that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if you're feeling high anxiety, ylang ylang and shenmen can really, really help calm you down, as bergamot can, but it just works differently. And it's also what you're more attracted to. Are you attracted to more of that citrusy, uplifting scent in the moment, or do you need something that's sweeter and sort of more, again, euphoric, more where it creates this very safe bubble for you, which is why ylang ylang is great, I think, in recovery, because it does tend to create that sort of safe space. And if ylang ylang isn't your thing, sandalwood might be. And so sandalwood, again, we talked about it before, is a sweet woody. It's a more masculine scent, less intense on the floral notes, because it's balanced with the woodier notes, but just as effective for a lot of people. So
and which one is that one? The
sandalwood.
The sandalwood. Okay. Okay.
And you know, jasmine is a great euphoric oil. One thing we didn't really have time to touch on is just quality of oils and where you get your oils from. And a lot of the low yield oils like rose and jasmine and helichrysum, they're expensive for a reason, because it takes so much plant material to make an essential oil. You know, lavender is not a low yield oil, for instance, which is why you see lavender readily available in all sorts of products as well as essential oils. Yes, and it's not that expensive. That said, if you find a really, really cheap essential oil, steer clear, because it's probably adulterated, it's probably mixed with synthetics. So you want to just ensure that whatever oil you use, it's from a pure source and a company that is very careful of where they source, how they source, and also how they respect plant life. You know, that's one reason I love Tiffany Carroll, again, is that one reason why diluted oils are often better is because it's much more respectful to the plant, to not overuse it. I mean, in our Western mind, we always think more is better. So, okay, I'm going to put 20 drops of jasmine in my bath because that'll be better than one drop.
Right.
But with essential oils, across the board, less is better, less is more. So you like always want to keep that in mind. Yeah, exactly. You only need a tiny bit, again, because it is like the most potent part of the plant. Like, you're just like, you don't need a lot of that. You don't want to use.
I want to tell you two fun things.
Sure.
One, I went to this little lavender farm in Oregon when I stayed there for the summer.
Oh, fun. What's it called?
And we harvested it. This one is Lavender Fields Forever. So that was in Oregon. So I went and we harvested, like we all went out, and there's so many different types of lavender, so many types. And we all just went out and like just got to kind of learn and cut our own little basket. We ended up mixing it all together, but we got to learn that there's so many different types. And then we went and distilled it right then and there. And then we all left with a little bottle. And so that's super cool, just to see the whole process. Absolutely. And the other thing, you were talking about the yield, the low yield, and why rose is so expensive. And one of my favorite movies, which is pretty intense, I mean, it's very graphic in a lot of ways, but the story is incredible. And if you like, you know, foreign kind of art housey type stuff, it's called Perfume, Making of a Murderer. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's fantastic. You have to see it. And
was that
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
I believe so, yeah. And Dustin Hoffman is, he's a perfume maker. And the main character, who is the murderer, he ends up apprenticing under Dustin for a period of time. But they get a delivery of rose petals like once a week or whenever it was. And they have just like this huge, almost like one of those little things that opens to the street where people can just pour stuff in, and then it goes down, and then they can open it up in the basement. And like, I don't know, just imagine like 5 lawn leaf bags full of rose petals dump out into the floor in his delivery, and he dilutes it down, and it's literally this big. you
Yep.
know, so
Yep.
that's just to give you an idea. Like some of
Hmm.
those, like you said, it takes a whole lot of some plants to get just a little bit, and they're
Yep.
powerful.
They are powerful, and we must be respectful of that, And sometimes an oil can be inexpensive because it's not sustainable, and it's being processed in a way that doesn't respect not only the plant but the grower of the plant. So it's really good to be careful where you
Right.
source your oils from. So
Okay.
yeah.
Do you want to give a couple
I,
more? And just so anybody watching this, we have in my link, there's links in the bio, in my bio of reputable sources that Yona recommends as far as the oils go. So those are in the bio. You can check that. Yona is available at ionahx at gmail.com. You can reach out to her for probably a little, I'm sure you'd be open to some questions, like if they're watching this later and have some questions, or if you want to see her as an acupuncturist
oh yeah.
with Aromapoint Therapy. I just want to give that information here. You can reach out to me directly at my Instagram, which is nikki.iello_coach or nikkiiello.com. That's where you find out about me and my recovery coaching. Do you want to give some other information about maybe another point? I mean, in the other interview, we talked about this point. We talked
Heart
about
7.
Heart 7, and then we talked about the point on the foot for vetiver, which is one of my favorite oils
Oh yeah.
ever. What do you
That's
want
kidney
to
one.
do you want to talk about any others, or should we review those, or
Um,
what?
no, let's talk about another, and let's talk about
Okay.
lavender, because lavender is
Okay.
an oil that most people have at home somewhere in a drawer, sock
Yeah.
drawer somewhere that they haven't
Yeah.
used in a while.
Okay.
And it's also a beloved oil for most people. Although there's like, I don't know, 20% of the population where lavender has the opposite effect on them, where it's
Like
not
cilantro.
calming.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you know how some people hate
Yes.
cilantro and some people love it. Oh, but some people
Yes.
it's not calming, it's activating,
It's not calming, it's agitating. Yeah. So
agitating.
if you're one of those people, don't use lavender in this way. Don't use lavender at all.
What would you recommend instead of lavender then for another calming one,
Um,
other
Actually, I'm
than
going to talk about lavender as it's calming, but it's also moving. It moves energy really nicely. It's energetically, it's a green plant, and so it moves things along, especially things that have become stagnant. So
cool.
that's why it's a nice one to use also in recovery, because when you are, how the agitation can set in when you are not doing the thing that you really want to do. You just can get really like agitated.
Yeah.
And so moving energy in that moment of agitation is really, really important. So, if you can't go for a walk, or you can't, I mean, usually you can jump up and down and literally move energy, or dance, or do something to move that energy along, do that. But another way to move that energy is to use lavender on specific points. One of them is, most people know large intestine 4. Do you know that point, Nikki? Yeah, it's between the thumb.
I know this area for like a headache.
Yeah, well, it's that
The
area is
same.
the point, large intestine 4. That's
Okay.
why that's why we're told to press it there, because large intestine 4 is a great point for reducing headaches.
Oh.
It's called joining of the valleys. It also has a nickname called the Great Eliminator, which gives you a clue on how we use it. It's really good for constipation of any kind. So constipation, physical constipation, mental constipation, emotional constipation, which means like generally agitation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's a good point to know about for any of those reasons. But putting lavender here, so the way you would do it with lavender is you take the lavender. Where's my lavender? I'm just going to pretend that this is lavender because I can't reach for my lavender. You're going to put 1 drop of lavender on your finger, and then you're going to touch. You can actually do this if you're dexterous. You can actually touch the other finger to the finger that originally had the oil, and you can. Oh, actually, the way that you do it dexterously is to put it on 1 index finger and 1 thumb, and you can do both points at the same time. You know, I don't know if that's too confusing.
It's kind of, I mean, I get it, but it's definitely kind of, yeah, once you take your time to get it,
Once
then
you
you can just be still and hold it.
Yeah, and if that's too complicated, just do one side at a time. So you have your oil on your pointer finger here. You place it on the point, and this point is between the tendon of the thumb and the tendon of your first finger, and it's
Mm-hmm.
in that sort of. You'll find the V if you slide your finger up that area. You'll hit a point where you can't go any further because it's bone, and
Mm-hmm.
you just back up a little bit into the fleshy part
Mm.
of that area. And when you press on that point, it hurts. You'll know you're on the point when you feel that tenderness. So you know
Mm-hmm.
you're on large intestine 4 there. And so you just take your finger with the lavender oil and very gently place it on the point and hold it again for 1 to 3 minutes.
So great.
And then you'll do the other side if you were just doing one side at a time. So that's
So,
a great point combination, point oil combination.
and I'm sure if you
And
have
then
like a mantra or a certain breathing practice, it's really great ritual to add that on.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Or you can just be quiet and still and breathe normally. It's yeah, just
Yeah.
find a place where you can just settle in. Um, Another place to use lavender. Will you show your foot, Nikki? Can you show
Yeah.
your foot? Okay. So liver 3, which
Was
is
it the sole of my foot again?
no, it's
Oh,
essentially the same point that we just did on the hand, but on the foot. So it's between your big toe and your second toe in the same V. See that V?
mm-hmm.
Same thing. You slide your finger up until you can't slide it anymore, and then you back out just a little bit till you're in the fleshy part there. And again, it's very tender when you're on the point. Like if you pressed into it, it would be tender.
Yeah.
So that is liver 3, and that is the source point for the liver meridian, and it's one of the best points, period, for addressing stagnation in the body. It's really great for women who have cramps, menstrual cramps, any sort of
Oh, wow. Interesting.
anything that, yeah, headaches as well. So it works very similarly to large intestine 4, and those 4 points together, so the two bilateral points, are called the 4 gates, and they have a way of like moving energy through the entire body, and that combination is done a lot in TCM,
So what, both feet
acupuncture.
and both hands, the ones we just
Mm-hmm.
said? Okay.
Yep, and you can do lavender on both. So you start with your hands and then do your feet, and that will move your stagnation.
Mm.
Um, so especially good when you're just feeling like, oh, I could, whatever,
Whatever your
fill
action of choice
fill
is.
in the yeah, fill in the words.
Okay, cool.
But
That's
that's what
another
it
great.
addresses.
While you're sitting, like, I don't know, I'm just thinking about, it's always good for me to have a little, like, right before I'm going to sleep, doing something there, right
Mm-hmm.
when at different times to have it so I remember, oh, yeah, now is when I do this thing. So, if you haven't
Yeah,
watched the other video, you guys, Ionah gave 1, 2, 3 aroma points in that one that are really helpful. So go back and watch that and get 3 more because I'm a big fan of all of them. They've really changed just in this hour and a half that we've been talking. I really feel like a shift.
yeah, that's the great thing is that they're also about resetting
Mm-hmm.
your nervous system and just yeah, shifting you out of whatever it is that you needed to be shifted out of, whether your energy has slumped and you want an uplift, you can
Mm-hmm.
choose bergamot or choose another uplifting oil or pungent oil like rosemary that will wake up your brain really. Or whether you're
Mm-hmm.
too agitated and you really just want to calm down, then you would use vetiver on kidney 1. That would be a
Mm-hmm.
great choice at that point,
I
So
love vetiver. You guys should maybe go into, before you just like go and buy some online, unless you like them, go into a store and just kind of, they have the little areas where you can do the sample and just kind of make,
mm-hmm.
test them out.
Yeah,
Vetiver is a really unique smell, and it's
it
one
is.
that's always spoken to me. And then anytime somebody walks by and it's even in the slightest bit in their perfume or whatever, I'm always just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, I just know, and I'm just like, I seek it out, and it's
Yeah.
really, I love it. So it's a good one to check
Yeah,
out.
and
It's a
vetiver
new
is a
one. Not
great
a lot of
one.
people know about vetiver.
No, and also that vetiver is a great one to always use diluted, because undiluted vetiver can be very, very like overly strong, super heady, and it's actually a little nauseating to me.
Yeah,
When I smell
yeah,
straight vetiver, it's like, oof, I wouldn't want
yeah.
that anywhere on my body. But when you dilute it, even down to like 10% or 15%,
Hmm.
it's super effective, and you still get so much. I mean, you get so much of the aroma from it. So
Yona, I
I just
want
want to,
to go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. I
You
just
go.
wanted to, if I can use this opportunity one more time to plug
Yeah.
Tiffany Carroll,
Hmm.
who is
Hmm.
my dear, dear teacher and friend. She has so many classes available on her teachable.com site, and
Okay.
you can access her through Tiffany Carroll, CAROLE.com, and find all the classes that she teaches. What I did with her was the Master Healers program. And then in conjunction with that, I am part of her Healing Oil Collective, which is the most incredible way to learn about oils, I think, out there, because
Mm,
um, we learn about one oil a month in the most in-depth way you can imagine. It's not necessarily, I mean,
cool.
we do learn facts about all the oils, of course, but it's more about knowing the oil, like knowing the
Mhm.
oil, like in your soul. And so
Mm,
we meditate with the oil, we journey with the oil, we journal with the oil. It's like
wow.
by the end of the month, you are the oil. You know,
That's
the oil
really
is a
cool.
part of
Yeah.
you, and
Uh-huh.
that's how you learn like what oil. I mean, it's the best way to know like, okay, what oil would I want to have with me right now? You
Yeah.
really get to know that in such a deep, deep way, and it's something I don't know that anybody else is teaching oils in the same way that Tiffany is teaching them. I mean,
That sounds
we
so
are as her
interesting.
students, but she's
Yeah.
our source.
But
She's the
somebody who's
mama.
like me or somebody else can come in and be part of that
Oh,
oil collective.
absolutely. You don't have to
Cool.
be you don't have to be a practitioner of any kind. You can just have
Okay.
an interest in oils. But it would be great for you, Nikki, if,
Yeah,
to help you incorporate them into your coaching.
absolutely.
Um,
I mean, I have
this
a
is
lot of oils, but this is really helpful and re-inspiring for me to,
yeah,
like I like to
yeah,
send people to pros like you and to like Tiffany for like
yeah,
really in-depth continued treatment. But as far
yeah,
as just some little, I like some general universal things like the things you taught today that I will totally
yeah,
use now with my clients.
yep,
So,
yeah.
and I also want to, can I say something or did you want to finish your thought?
No, it's just yeah, just if you are interested in knowing oils in a very in-depth way, I don't think you'll get more material about an oil, about 33 oils, I think it is, than you
Mm-hmm.
will in that course. And you can
Cool.
take it as you want to take it. You know, it's once you are in it, you can the pace is yours. You don't have to stick with a certain pace. You do it whenever
So it's kind
you
of like
can.
online, it's like an online-ish sort of setup.
It's definitely an online. No
And
ish about it. There's no ish
well,
about it. It's online.
right. But it's not just like a document you download. It's really
No,
more of
no,
like
no.
a formatted thing for a month.
Yes, and yeah, but you can take it in your own time, and you can skip
Okay.
sections and do the meditation one day, and
Okay.
there are videos and audios all done by Tiffany, and yeah, it's awesome.
Cool. Okay.
And she also has a YouTube channel where you can learn a ton of this stuff for free, which is amazing.
Tiffany Carroll.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure I put her link.
Carole.
I'm pretty sure I put her link in my bio. If I didn't, I'll add it now, but I'm pretty sure I
Okay.
did. Okay.
Okay.
I wanted to say that since this is, specific to recovery, this conversation,
Yeah.
um, that things like what you just mentioned, taking that course and doing, there's a few things. One, just having substitutions. So a new
Mhm.
ritual rather than drinking or whatever it is that you're normally reaching for, you have a new thing to go to. Um, is important, and I like adding that in, preventatively or whatever. Just it's a whole new practice. It's a new way to link your brain to a new behavior. And two, uh, basically when you're in recovery, it's also really nice to have new, just getting really into something even without any intention of like teaching. So it's like a training course,
Mm-hmm.
not to be a teacher necessarily. Like a lot of people go through yoga teacher training just to deepen their own knowledge of themselves. And
Right.
so, like, to in recovery, when you're letting go of so much, just, filling yourself with really nourishing education like this is such a great idea. So I'm so glad you mentioned that course. And this one you can also do at home. And it's just all these little things, which leads me to my next thing, which is reset, which you've used that term a few times. And today, I mean, we were talking the other day, and how constantly it's recovery, especially early recovery, and it starts to space out as you get further into it. Your need to reset is
Mm-hmm.
frequent because your mind is constantly clicking back into these old patterns, old habits, fear mode, blah, blah, blah. So different oils that have a reset, kind of like a clearing effect.
Mm-hmm.
I really recommend it. Anything that can
Mm-hmm.
give you a reset. A walk for me is a reset. Like doing breath of joy is a reset. There's all sorts of different reset practices. So I love that. I want to drive the point home as far as finding quick reset things. Like, yeah, you're feeling off kilter, but you're not going to be able to. You have your favorite yoga classes tomorrow at 5.
Right.
Like, what can I do right now?
Yeah.
And, like, what are just easy things you can have around the house or in your purse, that kind of stuff, and resources online, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So many things. I mean, having a glass of water is a reset,
Yeah.
literally it is, because if you're in any way dehydrated or not optimally hydrated, your
Yeah.
brain is not functioning optimally. None of you is. And so
Right.
um, just having a glass of water can rock your world if you're, especially when you're in need of that reset. Taking 3 deep breaths, counting in for, say, a count of 5 or 6, and counting out for a count of 5 or 6. Doing that 3 times is an amazing reset,
Yeah.
So you don't have to look too far outside of yourself for a reset. The
Mm-hmm.
oils are wonderful, especially if they're on hand. But you can jump up and down 10 times, and that can be your reset, right? You
Totally.
can, like you, Nikki, walks to me are my drug of choice.
I
Always.
know.
Like, if I can go for a walk when I need a reset, that is what I will do first.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can't, then I practice breath work, or I take a drink of water, or I literally jump up and down just to move energy. Anything that
Mm-hmm.
you can do to move that energy, that stagnant energy, is going to help
Mm-hmm.
distract your mind from the thing that you don't want to do anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to shift a habit. I mean, we get in these very deep behavioral habits, and it, you know, like, for instance, my drinking habit lasted about 35 years. So the expectation that that's going to shift quickly is just simply not a very realistic expectation. And so giving
Yeah.
yourself the space, the time to experience what it's like not to be in that habit is critical, and to be easy with yourself around it, and to be gentle with yourself around it, because it's not an easy thing,
Mm-hmm.
to shift a habit that's so entrenched in your being, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, whether it's
Any
drinking
tools and
or,
help you can get are
yeah,
so great. So great.
yeah.
You need to
And
nurture
sometimes,
yourself.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes that looks like, sitting on the couch for 3 hours and binge watching Schitt's Creek, or if that if that's what pulls you out of that, that craving,
Yeah.
then so be it, so be it.
Yeah. Choose the
A
thing
lot of
that's
people,
less destructive, and keep making those
exactly.
choices.
Yeah. I know a lot of people
Yeah.
struggle, as I did, with eating too much sugar or eating too much in general after stopping drinking. But, you know, I was okay with that for a long time
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
it was better than drinking. Like,
Yep.
too many potato chips was better than drinking too much wine. And so
Totally.
for a long time, that was okay with me. And then when I was ready to address eating too many potato chips,
Mm-hmm.
because again, black or white, it's the whole bag or nothing for me, then then I was ready to address that. And I,
Yeah.
again, same thing. I don't bring the chips into the house anymore, just like I
Mm-hmm.
don't bring the wine into the house anymore, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, so yeah, you choose the lesser of the evils, I suppose, is one way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm, working with any people in recovery of all kinds,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's alcohol or a divorce, a lot of people are still reaching for, the painkillers of the chips and the sugar and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And yes, I'm just like, please, your body is trying to give itself some peace and some joy because it's not getting it how it used to. And
Yes.
let's allow for this period right now. Ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
yes, if I see that you're going on and on and on and on, and I don't see any, direction that, maybe is going to head back in a positive way, then I'll jump in and say, let's work on
Mm-hmm.
that. But initially, it's just, yeah, just kind of go easy with the recovery process because it's a shock to the system. So
For sure.
you want to minimize your daily shocks, and you want to figure out all sorts of new nurturing activities, practices, all those things. If you're healing something, So it's like, what are the ointments? What are
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's
the
important to
conditions?
remember
What
that.
conditions can you set for yourself?
Yeah, and I think with addiction, I think it's important to remember that, we're all with addiction. We that addiction often begins because we're just trying to self-soothe. We're trying to
Yeah,
calm our nervous
exactly.
system in some way, and for some of us, that way, we were drawn to a way that ultimately wasn't good for us. But the reason why we reached for it was to self-soothe. And so if
Yeah.
you can find other things that compensate for that need for soothing,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big effort that we all make when we're trying to not do the thing that wasn't serving us. Is okay,
Mm-hmm.
what else can I do that's going to help me feel like I'm being taken care of in this moment? So um, yeah, so whatever that might be for you, that's ultimately better and good for you, hopefully.
For sure. Well,
Yeah.
everyone, so Yona and I are both great resources for, Yona in particular, acupuncture and working on you with you as a healer, and me working with you as a coach. Anybody in recovery from anything, just needing rebalance, reset, new skills, accountability, support, all of those things. We are here for you to reach out to and connect with. If you're in Denver, Yona practices here outside of Denver, basically in Denver, just a little neighborhood called Sunnyside. And yeah, I already gave my NikkiAiello.com. Yona is ionahx at Gmail. You can reach out to her. And yeah, I think that's good for now. Thank you, Yona, so much. It was really helpful. I got
Thank
so
you,
much out of
Nikki.
this.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a
Mhm.
pleasure.
Okay. Well,
Thanks,
I will talk to you
everyone.
soon.
Okay,
M.
bye.
Thomas is thanks. All right. Mwah.